the $2 million, did you think the $2 million price for something that was about to go belly up, did you think you were paying too much, or you felt you got a good deal? Because you had the UFC, you had all the branding, you had everything already in place. You weren't going to have to put that up.
In hindsight, yes, it was an amazing deal. But when you really think about what we bought those 3 letters and an old wooden octagon.
Yep.
And realistically, even those 3 letters hadn't been protected the way that they should have been.
Right.
He had sold off the video game rights, all the VHS and home video rights, which at the time
that was the money.
Was big, exactly. We only had I want to say we had 12 or 13 contracts with guys at the time. So there was a lot of work that needed to be done. It's easy to look back now and say, oh man, they got the UFC for $2 million. People don't really understand or know what it really took and all the work that had to go into turning this thing around.
But you had to invest, you had $40 million in debt.
Right.
On the top of the $2 million that you had spent in order to, and obviously we know what it's worth now. But as like you said, you only had X amount of fighters under contract. So, and I'm reading that you're like, okay, you put all your own money up on Spike TV to.
Right. So at the time, we're 40 million in debt, and the only way we thought we could turn this around was getting it on free TV. And you have to understand, when we bought this, it wasn't allowed on pay-per-view.
Right.
Porn was on pay-per-view. You could buy porn. You were not allowed to buy the UFC.
Wow.
So our goal was to get it on free television. People thought we were insane and it would never happen. But at the time, reality TV was taken off.
Yes.
And it was sort of what we felt was our Trojan horse. You're watching, UFC.
Right.
But the fights were taped. What the network was really afraid of was live fights, and that something crazy would go wrong and whatever. Well, these fights were taped, so
you could edit it accordingly.
Exactly. It was the perfect in for us. So,
but wasn't Congress trying to pass laws to get it banned or outlawed or something?
Yeah, they did.
You were up against that also, if my memory serves me correct.
Right. So what happened with the original UFC was they ran from regulation. They tried to go to places, where regulation they thought couldn't touch them. And then Senator John McCain came in and put the stamp on them, and all their marketing that they did at that time hurt them. We did the exact opposite. We ran toward regulation. Lorenzo Fertitta was a very respected regulator at the time. So yeah, our goal was to make this a real sport. This many people want to watch a freak show. This many people want to watch a real sport with real athletes. So we believed that it could be this someday, but you never really. Our big thing was the jiu-jitsu.
Yes.
How are you going to educate people about the jiu-jitsu? Because, again, you and I are close to the same age. We came from, the old John Wayne movies where he'd hit a guy.
Yeah.
And you'd go over and you'd stand him back up and hit him again. You didn't jump on top of the guy and start beating the shit out of him. That wasn't, and boxing and everything. How do you teach people the ground game?
Right.
Well, first of all, one of the key components to that was Joe Rogan.
Right.
Who is the greatest,
the UFC
play-by-play fight guy ever. He's a guy who's really educated on the sport, has actually done it, loves and respects the sport and the athletes. And Joe Rogan had this ability to walk you through what was happening before it actually started to happen, And jiu-jitsu as a sport and as a martial art completely took off, and everybody started training in it. So
would you consider Joe Rogan to be the Howard Cosell of the UFC?
100%. I mean, he's better than Howard Cosell. Howard Cosell never actually trained in it, did it, and could speak about it with the love and passion that Rogan does.
Right. Did you understand what you were buying? Did you understand that the UFC, we're taking a lot of different disciplines. We're taking karate, we're taking Muay Thai, we're taking street fighters, we're taking boxers, we're taking whatever the case may be. Did you understand what you were actually buying when you purchased the UFC?
We did, because we were in love with the sport.
Okay.
You know what I mean? This wasn't just like, if this was an investment, you probably wouldn't have done it.
Right.
This was, we loved it.
Right.
We were literally obsessed with it. We started taking jiu-jitsu with John Lewis, and we were doing, 3-4 classes a week, private in our offices at the time. And we loved it. When we saw, we said, man, imagine if they did this. Imagine if they did that. This could be big. We truly believed in it.
Did you take the jiu-jitsu classes to better understand that or to see how it would translate into UFC?
No, we took the jiu-jitsu just to do it.
Okay.
And then once we did it, we became obsessed with it.
Okay.
Then once John started bringing some of the other guys in,
Right.
and we started to meet these guys, we're like, boxing had the same story. I came from the mean streets of such and such.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it wasn't for boxing, I'd be dead or in jail.
Right.
That was everybody's story.
Correct.
That wasn't the story with the UFC. To be involved in martial arts, you grew up in a household that had money. Martial arts is expensive to go take these classes. And the other base for UFC was wrestling. So most of these kids had college educations. And, you know, they wrestled at some college. So it was a completely different. You had Matt Hughes, who was this farm boy from the Midwest.
Yes.
You had Chuck Liddell, who looked like an axe murderer, but actually graduated with a degree in accounting from Cal Poly. And the list goes on of all these unique individuals. And the style of fighting was much more exciting than boxing because you could punch, kick, knee, elbow, slam to the ground, do submissions.
Jump on top of it.
100%. There's just so many different ways to win and lose. It was a much more exciting fighting style.
So how did you learn to negotiate these TV deals? Because you're bringing a product that, I mean, it went away for a little while and you retooled it. And so how do you go into a Spike TV? How do you go into a Fox and says, okay, this is the product that I have and this is what I think it should be worth? How do you do that, Dana?
Well, think about this. When you ask me about how did you know how to manage? How did you know how, when we bought the UFC in, I think it was 3 weeks, we had our first event. Me and the Fertitta brothers had never put on an event ever. Logistically for the live event, forget about TV and lighting and cameras and all the shit. We had to learn. We had to dive in and we had to figure. But here's what we did know. We knew what we wanted. Okay. We knew all the things that we loved about boxing and all the things that we hated about boxing. Because at the end of the day, we were fight geeks. We loved fighting.
Okay.
So we knew what we wanted. Then it was just a matter of getting in there and fine tuning. Believe me, I went through, there was a day, we had these guys that worked for us at the time in production. And we had a fighter who flipped out in one of the interviews. And I loved it. I said, this is going to be incredible for this fight. We're doing this. So I worked with the production team. The production team said, no, we don't like this. We shouldn't do this. I said, well, I don't give a shit what you think. This is what we're going to do. Yeah. Okay. So we're sitting there the night of the fight. And I told Lorenzo, watch this interview. The interview happens. It's not what I told them to do.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I literally got up from my seat, went back and kicked the door of the truck in and went in there and said, if you motherfuckers ever do this again, I'll fire every one of you. So I ended up firing that whole crew anyway. But these are the kind of things we went through, in the early years to build it into what it is today. But it's all trial and error. But on the business side, you know how much I learned from the Fertittas on the business side? I mean, not just them. I'd go in and sitting down and talk to their father for hours about things. And, so coming through all of this was my college.
Right.
The best way to learn is to dive in and do it.
Experience.
That's how you learn this type of stuff.
They say in negotiations, in the art of a deal, you have to be willing to walk away. When do you know the right time to walk away, and have you ever walked away from a deal?
I've walked away from many deals recently too.
How do you know the right time to walk away, Dana?
It's just a gut. It's a gut feeling. You know if something's right for you or it's not right for you. And you don't jump at the first opportunity. Take your time, you pump the brakes, you shop around and see what's out there and what's possible. But lately, I've talked about this recently too. I'm at a place in my life and in my career, I'm not doing anything for money anymore. I want to be in relationships that I'm comfortable with. I want to be in relationships with people that I'm aligned with and that we have the same beliefs, philosophies, and whatever it might be, especially in this culture and in this nutty world we're living in right now.
So everything done with Dana White is about a partnership. It's not so much about getting a check. We're in business together.
100%. 100%. And we're aligned. And you're not going to be calling this office 12 times a fucking year bitching about shit. And the way that a lot of these sponsors think now and act, that because they spend some money with you, they can tell you how to run your business, live your life, how to vote, how to do this.
You ain't going for that, David.
You got the wrong guy. You got the wrong guy.
I read where you pay. Is it true? Because I read this, and I don't know. I love having people that can answer the questions for me. That you paid Spike TV to put on the Ultimate Fight. You paid them?
Yeah. So the first meeting that we had with Spike. Listen, we're looking at all these different options out there. Spike TV pops up. It's the network for men. Could there be a better fit for us in the UFC at the time for a reality show? So the guys came in and they met with us. And I remember that day they were going to a Dodger game.
Okay.
They could not get out of this fucking meeting fast enough to go see the Dodger game. And we pitched the Ultimate Fighter to them, and they didn't love it. So they end up leaving that day. The Fertittas and I get back together, and the Fertittas say, you know what we'll do? We'll put up the money for this first season, which was $10 million.
Wow.
And this will be our last investment in the UFC. If this doesn't work,
we're done.
Over. Yeah. So we reach out to Spike TV. We tell them we're going to put up the $10 million. They love that idea. So we financed the first season of The Ultimate Fighter, and The Ultimate Fighter is a smash hit.
Right.
And then the finale happens, and Forrest and Stephan Bonner put on that unbelievable fight. The ratings go through the roof. That night I was like, I don't care if we end up with Spike or not. I know we got something here and we're going to end up somewhere. The Spike TV executives take us out into the alley in the back of the arena. We literally did the next TV deal, the outline for it on a napkin.
Wow.
In the alley at the arena.
But is it true that WWE could have axed the deal because you followed them on Monday night?
Yeah. And I will give Spike TV and their executives all the credit in the world for that. They literally, once we got in there, they put us behind the coming out of the WWE, which was a brilliant move.
Right.
And that was all Spike TV. They did that.
But how do you, I'm just trying to figure out, because obviously when people see you do something and you have success, obviously you're going to have competitors that are like, okay, maybe we're not going to be as big, but if we can take 10, 15% out of the UFC, how have you been able to not only build from where you came from, but continuously grow?
Well, we once this thing took off and started to grow, my philosophy was always this. The old UFC and a lot of other events that you'll see, all they really cared about was focusing on the television product.
Okay.
Which is very important. But what about the live event?
Right.
Because the people who show up for the live event actually spend more money. Most of them fly there. They have to get hotel rooms. They buy the tickets. They have to
They
eat.
buy gear.
100%.
The T-shirts. And
eat.
Programs.
The list goes on and on. I always want to make sure that the live event is better than anything you've ever seen. And most people will tell you, when you come to a UFC live event, it is the best sporting event you will ever see live. It's actually better than what you see on TV, and the TV product is incredible.
Right.
So all I ever focus on every day when I come to this office is finding and building new up-and-coming talent.
Okay.
Putting on the best fights that we can possibly put on, and then it's live television production and live in-house production. If I focus on those things every day, you can't mess this up. You can't mess it up. It's impossible.
But it has to be, because you're a very, very energetic person. And in the beginning, this had to wear you down. The average person, when you're not having the success out the gate that you thought you were going to have, how are you able to remain so positive?
Nothing wears me down.
Yes.
If things wore me down, I'd be sitting in fucking San Diego right now. I'm doing God knows what. Because believe me, getting here right now today,
right,
nothing wears me down. I feed off that kind of shit. I love it. I love adversity. I love people saying this can't be done. That's my favorite thing in life. Tell me this can't be done.
And I'm going to show you can.
100%.
Want to join Club Shay Shay? Become an official member by hitting that subscribe button, where you never know who's going to be joining us for drinks and conversation. Don't be late to the party, because We like to do something before do something.